Well, hey, howdy, hi! Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for stopping by to join me today. I really do appreciate it. My name is Ellie, and I'm a witch, and this over here is my teaching assistant, Andy, and today is going to be another video from my Dark Deeds and Demons series, where I'll be talking about the alphabet murders. As with the rest of the videos in this series, I do have a cocktail that goes along with it. This one is going to be the Grim Reaper, and just so you guys can appreciate, it sparkles. It kind of just tastes like cranberry juice, but I like cranberry juice, so 6 out of 10. Without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump into this video. Trigger warnings for today are for murder, specifically murder of children, mentions of suicide, and mentions of sexual assault, specifically of children. I do have plenty of other videos on my channel if any of that is not something that you think you can handle. This is unfortunately another unsolved case and is known by a few names: the Alphabet Killer, Alphabet Murders, or the Double Initial Murders. Taking place between 1971 and 1973 in Rochester, New York, called the Double Initial Murders because the victims all had the same initial to start their first and last names. Then, after they were killed, their bodies were left in a small town or village nearby that started with the same letter as their first name. On November 16th of 1971, 10-year-old Carmen Colon disappeared on her way home. Witnesses said that she had entered a pharmacy she was sent to on an errand. The medication she was meant to pick up was not ready yet, so she had to go back home. The store manager, Jack Corbin, remembered she told him, "I gotta go, I gotta go." Witnesses said the young girl then got into a car parked by the pharmacy, and a few hours later she was reported missing. About 50 minutes after she left the pharmacy, several drivers noted that they saw a child, naked from the waist down, running away from a reversing vehicle on Interstate 490. The car was reported to be a dark-colored Ford Pinto hatchback. Carmen was waving her arms and shouting frantically in an attempt to get passing cars to stop. When no one did, her abductor caught up to her, and a witness says that she was submissively led back to the car. 2 days later, 2 teenage boys found her body. She was partially clothed and wasn't far from the Interstate 490 near the village of Churchville. Her coat was found 300 feet from her body, and her pants were found near a service road where the witnesses first saw her get out of the vehicle. Her autopsy revealed that she had been sexually assaulted, had a skull fracture, a vertebral fracture, and was strangled to death. The case sparked some severe public outrage since not a single person stopped to help this child clearly in distress. As a result, several newspapers came together and put up a $2,500 reward for any information, the information they received being given to the police. The community also came together and were able to raise the reward amount to $6,000. Police did interrogate many suspects in the following months, but no one was charged in her murder, and by December, the number of full-time investigators on the case was dropped to 3. Several billboards were created to try and generate new leads, but no tips ever led to an arrest. 17 months later, on April 2nd, 1973, 11-year-old Wanda Wachowicz disappeared, also on her way home from an errand. She had been out buying groceries, but went missing on her way home, and her mother reported her missing a few hours later. A search was immediately launched, and 50 detectives searched near her home, near the shop, and near where she was known to hang out. Unfortunately, the search did not find the missing child. The next morning, though, her body was found. She was fully clothed and found at the bottom of a hill near State Route 4 in Webster. The way her body was lying led the investigators to believe that she was thrown from a moving vehicle, after which she rolled down the hill. Her autopsy revealed that she was sexually assaulted and strangled. They found defensive wounds on her, showing that she fought her attacker. It was also determined that she had been redressed after she was already dead. Now, semen and pubic hair, along with some white cat fur, was also found on her body and preserved as evidence. Now, police set up a tip line with a reward of $10,000 and were distributing flyers asking anyone with information to come forward. A couple of eyewitness accounts came from this tip line, one saying that they saw the girl stopped by a fence to readjust the bags that she was carrying and noticed a brown car pass her. Another account said that they saw her talking with the driver of the brown car. Later on, another tip came in saying that they saw a girl matching Wanda's description being forced into a light-colored Dodge Dart. The Rochester Police Department dismissed the idea that Wanda and Carmen's cases were connected. 7 months later, on November 26, 1973, 11-year-old Michelle Manza was reported missing after failing to return home from school. According to classmates, Michelle had intended to walk to the local shopping mall to get a purse her mother had left there earlier. It was about 10 minutes after leaving the school that she was spotted in the passenger seat of a beige or tan car, and according to the witness, the girl was crying. At 5:30 p.m., about 2 hours after the witness said that she was seen in the passenger seat, a motorist saw a man standing by a tan or beige car with a flat tire on the side of Route 350. The man was apparently holding a young girl by the wrist. Now, the motorist stopped to offer help, and the man holding what he believed to be Michelle pulled the young girl to stand behind him. The man was also standing in a way that blocked the license plate of the car, so the Good Samaritan felt weird about staying and instead retreated to his car and left. The morning of November 28th, Michelle's body was found. She was fully clothed and was found along a roadway in Macedon. Her autopsy revealed she had been sexually assaulted, had extensive blunt force trauma to her body, and had been strangled. More white cat fur was found in her body, as well as semen and a partial palm print. Her stomach contents revealed traces of a hamburger and onions that were consumed roughly an hour before her death. This made sense when they received an eyewitness report of a girl matching Michelle's description, having been seen in the company of a white man with dark hair, aged 25 to 30, about 6 foot tall, and weighing an estimated 165 pounds, out together at a fast food restaurant. All of these girls' murders were followed with public outrage and a lot of publicity. After Michelle's murder, a composite sketch of the suspect she was thought to have last been seen with was released. A dedicated tip line was created for any information about this serial killer, and of course, a reward was offered once again. This led to many calls, but no credible suspect was found, although 800 potential suspects were investigated in relation to the murders, but no one has been charged in this case. I will go over some of the most prominent suspects in the case though, starting with Miguel Colon, Carmen's uncle. Now, Miguel was her paternal uncle, but he became close with her mother after her parents separated. Shortly before Carmen disappeared, her uncle had bought a car matching the description of the one reversing on Interstate 490. Investigators did investigate the car and noted that it had been extensively cleaned and the trunk had been washed with a strong cleaning agent. The dealership that sold the car verified they had not washed it with any detergent prior to sale. The investigators also found a doll that belonged to Carmen, however the family verified that she had traveled in the vehicle previously. A friend came forward telling police that a few days after the murder, Miguel had talked to him about his intention to leave the country as he had done something wrong in Rochester. Miguel did in fact relocate to Puerto Rico a mere 4 days after the murder. Miguel did return to Rochester to answer questions about the murder though. He had no alibi and could not account for his whereabouts on the day of the murder. Despite the circumstantial evidence, they had nothing concrete to tie him to the murder of his niece and couldn't arrest or charge him. Now, he ended up committing suicide in 1991 after he shot and wounded his wife and brother. The next suspect was Dennis Termini. He is one of the stronger suspects in the case, and he was a 25-year-old firefighter at the time. He was a known serial offender, known as the Garage Rapist, and had 14 known rapes of young women between 1971 and 1973. He also happened to own a vehicle that matched the description of the second and third murder. 5 weeks after Michelle was killed, Dennis attempted to abduct a teenage girl at gunpoint. The teenager refused to stop screaming, so Dennis fled. It wasn't long after that he was able to abduct another girl, but was pursued by police and ended up committing suicide. After his death, they continued to investigate him as a suspect and were able to find white cat fur in his car. In 2007, police had his body exhumed and obtained a DNA sample. Comparing it against the semen found on Wanda's body, they determined he was now responsible for her murder, but they were unable to test the DNA found on Carmen and Michelle's body as it was not saved. Next suspect is Kenneth Bianchi, who is a known serial killer. At the time of the murders, he worked as an ice cream vendor and worked at several locations close to the first 2 murder scenes. Kenneth relocated to Los Angeles in January of 1976. Following the move, he and his cousin Angelo Bueno Jr. committed the Hillside Strangler murders of 10 girls and women. He has outright denied responsibility for the Alphabet murders, of course, and actively wanted police to clear him, but he was known to drive a car the same color as a killer when he lived in Rochester. The last suspect that I will talk about is Joseph Nasso. He was arrested when he was 77 years old in 2011 for the 4 murders of women in California. The crimes were committed between 1977 and 1994, and all of the women were thought to be prostitutes. Each of the women had the same first letter of their first and last names. Joseph had lived in Rochester in the early 1970s, though. His DNA was tested, but he was negative and therefore cleared for the crimes. He was, however, convicted and sentenced to death for the 4 murders in California. And that is all that I have for you today. It is very unfortunate that this is an unsolved case, especially when they had a couple of concrete suspects, but DNA just didn't match. but also a travesty that they didn't save any DNA from the first and last murders. I will say that my personal theory is definitely that Miguel killed Carmen. It was just a really suspicious set of circumstances. Why did he leave? Especially if he was close with her mother. Why would you flee the country when you know that her mother is going through something so traumatic at that time? The first thing that she would want is family with her. And he fled 4 days after the murder. It's just really suspicious to me, along with, obviously, they didn't test the DNA, but also all that circumstantial evidence. Just personally, like, I know that circumstantial evidence should not be the only thing to convict somebody, but in this case, I think that it was enough. I do also stand by what the detective said in that Carmen's and the other two murders were not related. It makes more sense that Miguel killed Carmen and then the other two girls were killed by someone else. Police did also say that they think it's a coincidence that it was the first and last name matching letters, but it is weird though that it just happened across the country with somebody else who did the same thing and targeted 4 people. It's an interesting coincidence if it is just a coincidence, but that kind of points the finger more at Joseph Nasso. But yeah, very sad case to learn about, one that I had never heard about before, one that I hope that they do eventually end up solving with the DNA evidence if they, ever have somebody come forward and say, hey, my great-great-grandfather or my great-uncle or something like that, and they're able to test their own DNA against it. For my next Dark Deeds and Demons video, I have absolutely no idea what it is going to be about, so I put it on the screen somewhere. Sorry, I was not prepared for this, clearly. As we get closer to Halloween, the more and more excited I am. Halloween is definitely my favorite time of the year, my favorite holiday, if you couldn't tell. And actually tomorrow, my family's Halloween party, so I will at least know what I'm dressing up as, but you guys will see that tomorrow. So I'm very excited. But speaking of dressing up, do you see how cute Andy looks in his little devil cape? It's a dog outfit. Nothing ever fits him because he's weirdly proportioned, but he's so cute in his little tiny, I think it's like an extra small dog cape for Halloween. It's so cute. I am of course a clown. Hope that that's a little bit freaky. Didn't turn out quite the way that I wanted to makeup wise, but a super fun and a very sad case to dress as a clown for. Honestly, it would have probably been perfect to talk about John Wayne Gacy while dressed like a clown, but that felt really disrespectful, so I chose not to do that. Anyway, enough rambling. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye!